Shaftesbury and Gillingham young farmers club member Lucy Peck has returned home to Motcombe after an unforgettable fortnight in Sri Lanka, teaching children, learning from small-scale farmers and discovering how sustainability shapes everyday life there. And she's brought home some simple but powerful farming ideas to share with her colleagues. This trip of a lifetime was gifted to Lucy.
Yeah, so I went up to Coventry and went through an application process, and so I went up and had an interview with the man who was sponsoring the travel.
She was selected after a successful presentation to travel on this exchange.
So the first week we spent in a school and we were teaching them English and putting on different activities for them. And then the second week we went to a local farm and we learned all about worm composting and environmentally friendly ways of farming that we could actually use at home.
What was the first thing you saw and thought, gosh, this isn't Motcombe?
The traffic, just getting out of the airport, it was chaotic, and there's like 3 lanes in 2 lanes, and you're just constantly looking around you with horns beeping and wondering when is it safe to cross.
Now, you know that people all complain about the traffic in Motcombe, so next time you hear that, you can say, look, it's not Colombo, all right?
No, it's really quite civilised. So I was on the west coast in an area which was less developed, so it wasn't touristy at all. And it was just, they make everything from scratch. So all the meals we had were made by the lovely ladies. And they just used everything around them, all the trees, all the plants. And you knew what you were eating.
Did you get to eat anything you've never eaten before?
Yes, there was a lot of trying different flavours and tastes. I had buffalo curd, which was quite amazing. Lots of spices. I've never had fresh coconut, so that was straight from the tree, and various different types of coconut I didn't know about. We had passion fruit straight off the crop. So it was just everything potentially that you can get here, but fresh, and it tasted so much better. And the spice, we asked for mild, and it still blew our heads off. It was a challenge, and I had a salad, and I was so relieved there was salad, and then it was spicy. So it was quite a relief to come home and actually just have something quite plain.
In terms of farming, what kind of farming is it?
So where we visited, there are a lot of chickens, both for meat and eggs. There's due to like the religion, there's not so much beef, but they all had very small dairy farms. So if you had 10 cows, it was a big herd. So the farming was more like tea plantations, rice crops, and then where we visited, he was just producing everything in a sustainable way. So he was doing worm composting and selling compost that way. So it was just a very different insight to farming.
What is the dominant force, crops or livestock?
I think everyone had a little bit of livestock, but like I said, very small scale. There weren't at all the big farms that you see around here. And around here, a small farmer has 100 cows, whereas a big farmer there has 20. So that was very different. But everywhere you drove, there were rice fields. So that's obviously one of their massive incomes, and tea plantations is obviously a massive production. So I'd say still a bit of both, but definitely more crops than meat.
And it's interesting, I guess, the religious impact, because there are a lot of Buddhists in Sri Lanka. It's the dominant religion, and their views broadly are that you should refrain from taking life, which means that many Buddhists are vegan or vegetarian, certainly. So do you find that influences the farming?
I think potentially. I mean, we only saw a limited area of the farming, but there definitely wasn't the big-scale beef farms and the big-scale dairy farms. Like, all the milk we had was powdered milk. Food they make from the plants and the coconuts and those crops would be easier to keep than the meat, which you have to keep at a cool temperature.
Do you get a sense that people don't have a throwaway culture, that things are used time and time again?
It was eye-opening in terms of the litter and that sort of side to it. But with the food, I mean, we try not to waste anything, and every bit of the plant they used, and they didn't use it, they composted it. So it was all very linked in a cycle from what I saw where we stayed.
Do you sense yields are quite good?
I think they are. I think obviously it depends on weather, and just like it does over here. But I think their rice production is definitely improving again since the crisis. But everywhere we drove, you saw rice fields.
Is there much use of fertilisers there?
No, I think partly to money, fertilizers not potentially allowed. And I know they did put a ban on it, which caused part of the crisis. So I don't think so, but we didn't really get to see too much of that side of it.
So there is, if you like, red tape affecting farming and agriculture there as well.
Yeah, there are definitely rules and regulations. I think maybe some of the smaller places don't necessarily follow them, but there is an umbrella of rules.
There's a lot of talk here, as you know, of regenerative farming and rewilding, those kind of practices, sustainability. Is that the conversation there?
I think they're on a different scale because I didn't see a big tractor while we were out there. It was all very small Massey Fergusons without cabs. So you don't have the large impact on the land. It's still a traditional way of farming it, especially with the rice. It's all very wet fields. So their approach is different where we were. The farm we visited, he's all into doing the composting and making protein out of different plants for his chickens. So he's definitely looking at positive ways of farming that are sustainable for the future and all link up so that actually economically it makes sense because there's not massive outgoing.
In terms of sharing knowledge and information, what did you tell them that you think could help the people you stayed with and spent time with in Sri Lanka about farming and about what you know from the way it's done in Motcombe and Dorset?
So at the school, we actually dug them a vegetable patch. So we dug the furrows by hand. We loosened the soil. We bought them watering cans from the shop with our money we took over, and taught them about watering the plants. We made little like bamboo structures for the plants to grow up. So we tried to encourage the children to keep the vegetable patch going and so that they can make their own produce. And then we were just talking to the farmer about how we do it at home, obviously on a larger scale, and how it works with the regulations. But obviously it is very different out there. So almost with the farming, it was more what we could take home than what we could give to them.
What have you brought back?
So he made this very clever structure which encouraged flies into a little tub, and then they'd lay eggs, which obviously produced maggots, and then the maggots would drop down and the chickens would eat them. So that was a very natural way of producing protein for the chickens. And then he was also doing crickets for protein. And I think the worm composting was definitely one of the biggest learning curves because it was all so natural. And he began with 1,000 worms and now has millions of worms from them reproducing. And this compost is just full of goodness because of all the vegetable, scraps you put into it. And actually, for those who have sunflower plots or just locally or maybe a smaller scale want to improve their soil, it's such a good way to do it and environmentally friendly way.
I mean, other than seeing a bit of the world, Lucy, which is always a good thing to do, did you find it really beneficial? Are you glad you went?
100%. I'd do it over and over again, and I can't explain what an experience it was. I turned up at the airport knowing no one, met 8 other girls there, flew 13 hours across the world, and lived with them for 2 weeks, with a different culture, different food, and we were all just thrown into the boat together. And so confident, it was such an amazing opportunity.
Will you go back on a holiday or to visit your friends there?
I would like to go and see some more of the country because obviously I saw a very, very limited area.
Is there an invitation to invite people that you met to Motcombe?
Yes, so the farmer who we went to see is very keen to come to England, and we've all said that we'd love him to come over and stay with us, and we'd definitely host him for his visit. He's such an inspirational man that he's produced videos on what we've done, but equally we've brought back so much he's taught us. And I'd love to continue following his progress and learning from him, as he really is inspirational.
Do you think there's a village hall talk in this for you?
Yeah, I've got one planned, and I'm going to try my best to make some of the local cuisine and do a PowerPoint.
Motcombe young farmer Lucy Peck talking about her trip to Sri Lanka to learn about farming practices there.